With Duskblade recently nerfed, there's a new variation of lethality Kaisa that a few pros have been picking up in solo queue. Graves is one of the best carried junglers right now, but there's a build that many players are sleeping on. Welcome back everyone to the 13.21 edition of the new OP builds, where we break down 10 setups that are on the rise. But before we get into it, be sure to check out SkillCapped if you want to truly get better at League of Legends. We're the only service that offers a money-back guarantee if you don't climb at least 5 divisions while actively using our service. We do this because our service really does work, and if it doesn't work for you, you shouldn't pay. Learn more at the end of this video or click the link in the description below. For the longest time, Gwen players have been running Riftmaker as their mythic item, but there is an alternative mythic leading to far greater results. Rocket Belt is the item as it fits in really nicely on Gwen and gives you much more value than Riftmaker in select spots. Rocket Belt is going to be more bursty, while Riftmaker provides extended fight strength. With this in mind, if you are in a game to where the enemy comp lacks any significant frontline and are more squishy oriented, going for Rocket Belt is way better than Riftmaker. If you're able to kill your targets very quickly, then you lose quite a bit of value from Riftmaker, since by the time you get the passive fully stacked, the enemy could very well be dead. For the complete core build, it's a Nashor's Tooth rush into Rocket Belt second and then Rabadon's third. It's a standard rune page with Conqueror, Presence of Mind, Alacrity, and Last Stand, followed by Second Wind and Unflinching for secondaries. There's been a new Pantheon build gaining some popularity over the past patch, and it's a much more offensive core. Ghostblade is going to be the rush item as it was just recently buffed and is quite underrated on Panth. You slot in Blade of the Ruined King second, and then Mortal Reminder is the third purchase. A really big draw to this build is that you get so much bonus movement speed and shiftiness from the 2-item core. Ghostblade active provides movement speed, and so does the passive proc from Blade of the Ruined King. This makes sticking onto your target extremely easy, so when you're snowballing early on and it's just a matter of staying in range of your enemy to beat them, this build can work amazing. It's definitely more of a 1v1 or side lane focused build though, because you're lacking durability. For the rune page, to amplify burst power even further, look to pick up Press the Attack. Presence of Mind, Tenacity, and Last Stand round out primary runes, while Transcendence and Scorch are the optimal secondaries. A new setup that Korean Graves players have really been liking as of recent is a high mobility core consisting of Stormrazor and Ghostblade. Ghostblade has been very standard on Graves for a while, but it's the Stormrazor adaptation that is new. Stormrazor was just buffed a few patches back, which is why it's been seeing much more success. The build is kind of similar in a way to the Pantheon one we just covered, as you have so much kiting strength and sticking power from this build. Stormrazor's energized proc gives you 45% bonus movement speed for 1 second, so it's just a matter of initially getting on your target, but once you're there, they aren't getting away. The order in which you purchase your items with this build is as follows. Ghostblade is the rush item, the Collector is purchased second, and then you slot in Stormrazor third. For even more movement speed, Fleet Footwork is the keystone rune with Triumph, Alacrity, and Coup de Grace. Optimal secondaries are Magical Footwear and Cosmic Insight. A build that has made its way back into meta over the past patch that you need to be running on Hecarim revolves around Ghostblade. Duskblade is pretty lackluster now since it's been nerfed, while Ghostblade was just buffed and is currently winning the most for any mythic item on Hecarim. The 2-item core feels really nice as it's a Spear of Shojin Rush to give you some added durability, and then you go into Ghostblade second. The mix of consistent DPS and burst is really nice from this build. Ghostblade just works perfectly on Hecarim because the bonus movement speed from its active gives the champion even more damage, since Hex passive converts movement speed into AD. The third item to round out the core build is a Serylda's Grudge to make your dueling threat absolutely godlike. With the active from Ghostblade, slow from Serylda's Grudge, and movement speed from Phase Rush, there's no way the enemy is ever escaping you once you dive in. The rune page to go along with this build is Phase Rush with Nimbus Cloak, Celerity, and Water Walking, followed by Eyeball Collection and Ingenious Hunter for secondaries. As a result of the recent nerfs to Duskblade, there is a new heavy snowball-y build seeing way more success on Zed. Axiomark is core with this setup as it's going to drastically reduce the cooldown of Zed R, so you can be finding pick plays more often. The rush item with this build is Ghostblade, as it makes finding those pick plays in the first place much easier. Playing against this build, if a good Zed player is piloting it, can feel absolutely helpless. Not only is it easier to get on your target and kill them in the first place, once they respawn again, your ult will already be back up so you can rinse and repeat the process. Players often have these mental clocks as to the general cooldown of ultimate abilities, but when you run Axiomark, that goes out the window. Enemies in the mid game will end up disrespecting you so often because they think you've just used your R and it's still down, but it's already back up, leading to easy picks on confused targets. For the complete 3-item core, it's a Ghostblade Rush into Axiomark second and Prowler's Claw third. Rune Page is first strike with Freeboots, Futures Market, and Cosmic Insight. Grab Transcendence and Scorch for secondaries. There's a new Ukshin build that has just started popping up, and it revolves around rushing the recently buffed Ghostblade. In 13.19, there were literally no Uction players running Ghostblade, but now after the item was buffed in 13.20, it's his highest win rate mythic and being played in over 10% of Uction games. The 2-item core is all out lethality as you transition into the Collector second. For some added poke power and range, Rapid Fire Cannon rounds out the build. Most of the other Uction builds are centered around on hit and dealing a bunch of consistent damage over time, but this one is completely different. You got way more upfront burst with this build, and it makes the side lane threat of Uction extremely deadly. Popping out of stealth and one-shotting a squishy target that is trying to clear out a side wave is insanely easy with this build. After all, utilizing Uction's invis from W is really big to get the most out of him for solo queue, and this build synergizes with that aspect of his kit perfectly. The build is also a bit more noob friendly because you have a lot more upfront damage, which means cutting around and spacing optimally in fights is not as important to be impactful with Uction. Rune page to run with this build is press the attack, followed by Presence of Mind, Alacrity, and Coup de Grace. Roll with Bone Plating and Overgrowth for secondaries. A new Bruiser Twitch build has been on the rise, primarily being played over on EU West, and the order in which you purchase your items is super unique. You're not actually even building a mythic item at all in the 3-item core. Hurricane is the rush, and then Titanic Hydra is second. You actually want to grab your Tiamat before picking up Hurricane though, so you get the most amount of early shoving power. This 2-item spike gives you ridiculous wave clear and really great impact in 5v5 teamfights. The 1v1 power is not as good as if you were to rush Blade of the Ruined King, but as with any build, there are pros and cons. The 3rd item in this build is Black Cleaver, and in combination with Titanic Hydra, you have 900 bonus health when running the setup. Now, the rune setup is very important to get right when playing this build. You don't want to run Domination or Inspiration for secondaries, and instead take Resolve. By going Resolve, you have access to Overgrowth, which synergizes with the Titanic Hydra passive. When you pick up Titanic, your bonus health is converted into AD, which makes the value from Overgrowth really good. Of course, Lethal Tempo is still going to be the keystone rune, but just make sure you're going Conditioning and Overgrowth for secondaries. As mentioned during the intro, there is a new adaptation to the Lethality Kaisa build that you should be looking to try. Drop Duskblade as it's no longer optimal after the nerfs, and start running the buffed Ghostblade. A few pros have actually been experimenting with this one in solo queue, and it does check out on the analytical side of things as well. Lethality Kaisa players who run Ghostblade are winning about 1% more than those who are going Duskblade. One of the big perks to running Ghostblade over Duskblade is that it allows you to find more openings for kills. Duskblade passive is nice for when you dive into a fight, but Ghostblade active offers more snowball power for when you are ahead and are looking to force the issue. It's still going to be the Umbral Glaive as your rush item. You transition into Ghostblade second and then grab Nashor's Tooth third. Hail of Blades is the keystone rune with Taste of Blood, Zombie Ward, and Treasure Hunter. Grab Magical Footwear and Biscuits for secondaries. One support champion who has seen a spike in power and is flying under the radar right now is Zac. Zac is the support who tends to struggle more early on in lane and needs a few points into his E to really be impactful. 13.20 was the perfect patch to enable Zac's support because more health on starting items and the less snowballing nature of the game lets him get past his weaker early levels easier. Zac's support is a phenomenal pick into other melee engaged supports like Thresh, Blitzcrank, and Nautilus. You almost want those champions to hook you because especially at level 6, if you can get nice and up close to the enemy ADC, you can flash onto them and chain your CC. With all of his CC and damage, the skirmish of Zac's support at level 6 is very hard to match. Radiant Virtue is the perfect rush item for Zac as it synergizes with his hard engaged playstyle very well. Sunfire Aegis will be your second purchase, and then it's situational from then on out. Aftershock is the best keystone rune with Font of Life, Conditioning, and Revitalize, followed by Triumph and Tenacity for secondaries. Due to the anti-snowball patch and games now lasting longer, it's made one item much stronger on support champions. The value of Radiant Virtue has shot up as it is a more expensive pickup compared to other support options, but with games now lasting longer, it's not as much of an issue. Nautilus especially is one champion seeing great success with Radiant Virtue, and a ton of pros are picking it up on him, but the general player base in solo queue are only buying Radiant in 15% of games. Not players who rush Radiant Virtue are winning 53% of the time compared to Locket and even Shroud players who sit at 50%. Being that Naught's ultimate is a point-and-click spell and there's literally no way for you to miss it in a teamfight, you're always going to get value out of the Radiant Virtue passive. A little synergy between Radiant Virtue and Nautilus's kit that you may not think of is that the bonus health you get from proccing Radiant Virtue's passive will amplify the shield from Naught's W. Naught W scales off his max health, so although it's not the main reason to why you buy Radiant on him, it's another factor that makes the item so great for Nautilus. The complete 3-item cores are Radiant Virtue Rush into Zeke second and Knights of Out third. Glacial Augment is the keystone rune with Hex Flash, Biscuits, and Cosmic Insight. Best secondaries are Bone Plating and Unflinching. Alright guys, before we wrap this up, let's tell you a little more about SkillCapped. So, we offer a 5-division rank up guarantee, and think that's a pretty crazy thing to offer. It's like a gym membership guaranteeing you'll get ripped. Your local gym would go bust if they offered that, right? Not us. We've offered this for years because our service really does work. It works so well, in fact, that we're able to produce by far the largest catalog of premium league guides on the internet internet. We add over 20 videos a week, with over 1,600 guides curated into over 100 courses no one can compare. We've also sent Challenger players into ELO Hell 714 times and counting, where they commentate how to carry live. They also respond to all questions asked. Sign up today for as little as $6.99 a month if you are serious about improving. So that's going to wrap everything up for this one. Thanks so much for watching. Good luck in solo queue, and we'll see you back soon.